This is an organized theft, and those involved in this are protected.
A Nigerian soldier will be posted down to the pipeline at a point. In less than 2 weeks, the soldier will own a car.
This is what is also known as bunkering. The motion is for urgent need to investigate the incessant and nefarious acts of crude oil thefts in the Niger Delta and the actors. The Senate notes that Nigeria is largely dependent on crude oil for its economic growth and development. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, the oil sector contributed 6.33% of the nation's GDP, which translates to 45.6 billion in 2022. The Senate also notes that the oil sector in Nigeria plays a pivotal role in providing employment opportunities for millions of Nigerian citizens and accounts for 70% of its budget financing, while oil and gas made up of 90% of export income and 85% of government revenue in the first quarter of 2022. Further notes that statistical data which have been reported over the years, even till date, have shown that oil bunkering has brought Nigeria into serious socio-economic crisis, and this remains an intractable challenge to the Nigerian oil-dependent economy. Aware that crude oil thefts started at about the late 1970s and early 1980s under the military regime. Also aware that the current collaborative efforts involving the Joint Task Force of the Nigerian military, operations like Operation Delta Safe, Operation Dakatada Barawo, along with the contributions of various security entities, states and local governments, and international oil companies, IOCs, in the Niger Delta region have yielded positive results. These efforts have led to an increase in oil production, reaching 1.51 million barrels per day in the first quarter of 2023. This figure marks an improvement from the 1.49 million barrels per day recorded in the same quarter of 2022, and is notably higher than the production volume of 1.34 billion barrels per day in the fourth quarter of 2022. Observes that despite the efforts of certain military personnel and security agencies like the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps and DSS in combating oil theft in the Niger Delta region, there are individuals within these institutions who engage in illicit activities. These individuals collaborate with unscrupulous figures within the oil industry to undermine the nation's economy. Also observes that it has come to attention that oil theft in Nigeria thrives due to a troubling collaboration between security forces, militia groups, the local population, and certain employees within oil companies. These parties employ sophisticated methods to carry out theft from oil facilities located within the country. Given vast oil and gas reserves, one would expect crude oil production to continuously increase, aligning with OPEC's production quota of 1.74 million barrels per day. Concerned that there have been acquisitions and counter-acquisitions of oil bunkering and various other crimes between the military and local militia groups, these allegations underscore the significant level of sabotage and disruption to the nation's economic backbone. In 2022, it was reported that Nigeria suffered daily losses of approximately 437,000 barrels of crude oil, amounting to a value of 23 million due to criminal activities. Moreover, between March 2023, Nigeria incurred a substantial loss of 65.7 million barrels of crude oil, valued at $83 per barrel, translating to a staggering revenue loss of 2.3 trillion as a result of oil theft. Deeply concerned that the impact of these oil thefts in our oil sector is more substantial than what official reports suggest. While this issue was previously discussed discreetly, it is now gaining prominent and vocal attention. Aware that Section 20 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, with alterations, empowers the state to protect and enhance the environment, as well as safeguard the nation's land. Furthermore, Section 88 of the 1999 Constitution, in conjunction with Order 101 of the Senate Standing Order 2022 as amended, grants the Nigerian Senate the authority to conduct comprehensive investigations into the affairs of individuals or government departments charged with responsibilities, providing them with substantial oversight powers. Worried that the activities of these oil thieves and their collaborators have significantly hampered crude oil production, posing a substantial threat to the nation's economy. Accordingly, resolves to urge the Senate to constitute an ad hoc committee to conduct an investigation into the actions of security forces, militia groups, the local populace, oil company employees, and any individuals or entities suspected to be using sophisticated methods to pilfer oil facilities within the country. Mr. President and colleagues, you hear every day of bunkerings and various vessels being bombed. There are no sacrosancts in this industry. There shouldn't be any. The second, thank you, I will. The second prayer is to mandate the security operatives to utilize advanced technologies such as aerial drones to enhance the security of oil and gas facilities, effectively reducing oil theft and fortifying the country's revenue prospects. 3, call upon the federal and state governments to create a conflict resolution mechanisms involving international oil companies, host communities, and security agencies to address the root cause of oil theft and pipeline vandalism. 4, instruct Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation to engage host communities, local governments and state officials, IOCs, security agencies in collaborative efforts with private securities in the protection of oil pipeline infrastructure, rather than being handled by a few elites in the region. Establish a dedicated special court to handle cases related to oil theft, pipeline vandalism, and associated criminal offenses. Urge the federal government to explore avenues for engaging with modular and oil bunkering operators. And further urge federal government to legalize artisanal refining to enable the production of more refined products at affordable rates for Nigerian citizens. I so move, Mr. President.
It's a very serious issue. It's not just because of economic sabotage that is dwindling our revenue. but it's also affecting our ecosystem, Mr. President. As a Niger Delta person, Mr. President, I can tell you what is actually even happening in Ogoni land today, that the federal government, with the IOCs, are spending billions of dollars for cleanup. It's just as a result of the oil theft and the negligence by most of these vandals within the area. Mr. President, our security agents, their lack of collaboration in the area is one of the major causes of this problem. The civil defense, they are doing theirs. The Navy will be doing their own. The Nigerian Army will be doing their own. Mr. President, let me just say that back at my backyard at home, a Nigerian soldier will be posted down to the pipeline at a point. In less than 2 weeks, the soldier will own a car. I think what they are just doing in that area is a kind of settlement for some security agencies. Mr. President, there should be a proper check. Because if we just sit down and think that, oh, there's pipeline vandalization or there's problem that is happening in terms of oil theft in the area, it has a more than a holistic approach that is concerned. Because this thing flows from up to down. I have taken 2 times to arrest even the security agencies within my area. In less than no time, those security agencies were returned back to the same spot. And they will tell you, be careful. Who is sending them, we don't know. So, Mr. Senate President, this issue of oil theft in the Niger Delta is something that we have to really look at. Mr. President, I wholeheartedly support the motion, and I ask my colleagues that we contribute to look at this thing, because we are actually in a major trouble in the Niger Delta due to lack of collaboration between the security agencies that are supposed to guide this pipeline. Thank you, Mr. President.
We are giving it a coloration. It is bunkering. It is oil bunkering. Let us not be promoting it to say oil theft. This is what is also known as bunkering. It is a major economic sabotage to our country. And the syndicate, those that are involved in this syndicate are so many that by the time you unravel it, you'll be scared about the people who are involved in bunkering in Nigeria. It's a very serious matter. So I wouldn't want us to trivialize this matter. This is a matter that we have to also go too deep to begin to unravel who are involved. How are we living like this? Why is this economic sabotage being tolerated over the years? And that brings me up to another issue, because for us to solve the issue of bunkering, it is multifaceted. We have to look at security measures. We have to look at community engagement. We also have to go inward to search ourselves to find out whether we truly want to stop this exercise. Mr. President, it has to be sustainable. It is not something that we do one swap and we leave it and go and face another thing. It is something that once we are serious about stopping bunkering, the programs for bunkering stoppage must be sustainable. It can't be ad hoc. Because once you do it ad hoc and go back, the same people come back again because they know what they're benefiting from it. Mr. President, what baffles me is also the fact that these people can refine crude. They also refine crude. That brings me to the point I've made here on this floor before, that to refine crude is not a very difficult thing. Because the people who are doing this bunkering, they also refine crude. They refine the crude and they use it as PMS. So if they can use it on the street, if they can refine crude on the street, then what is the big deal about this crude, about importing PMS again? So these are some of the things that we have to look into. And in my state, where I come from, we want to thank the federal government for also approving the dredging of Uguta Lake to link it up to the Atlantic Ocean. That is also in an attempt to stop bunkering in our area. But by the time the Uguta Lake is dredged fully, with naval support, because they're already there. We have a full naval presence now. So that is the Imo State government contributing their own quota towards stopping bunkering in Nigeria. So, no, not even improving, stopping. Because if you dredge the Uguta Lake, if you dredge it and link it up to the Atlantic Ocean, and the naval patrol goes on it, then there will be nothing like bunkering within those nautical miles. So I want to commend the Imo State government for this very big initiative. It has never happened before. And the federal government have approved it, which means that the government is also very sensitive to the plight of people who are suffering from this oil bunkering.
Budget of Nigeria. The biggest problem we have in this country, Mr. President, is punitive measure. All these things that are allowed to eat. A colleague of mine now was contributing. He even said at his backyard, he has been arresting people who are bunkering, doing bunkering at his backyard. But nothing has happened. There have not been any punitive measure. And the moment we continue like this, it will just be go day in, day out. It become a lucrative business because nobody is being punished for it. And if we said we don't know, like the sponsor of the motion said, that if you look at the third paragraph, it says further note that statistical data which has been reported over the years, even till date, have shown that pipeline vandalism, oil bunkering have brought Nigeria into serious socio-economic problem. This is true. I remember every year, there's no single year, there's no motion from Niger Delta about oil bunkering. We set up a committee, we have this adult committee. Still, as we are talking now, Mr. President, there's a special committee in the House of Rep on the same issue, bunkering. At the end of the day, nothing happened. Until the day we wake up and do what is called serious punishment, take a decision that this is our country, no matter who is involved. The moment you take that decision, people will sit up. So I remember when we were in the university, when the Tunde Idiagbon said, and Buhari, they said, look, don't take cocaine or don't smoke cocaine. If you do it, they are going to kill you. Sir, Ojulope and Bethlehem, they were shot. For a very long time, our name was clean. Our name was a very, very clean name on in the map of the world. But when you look at it now, people laugh at us that you have everything. Day in, day out on the social media, they will say, you guys that have everything that you don't know what to do.
OPEC, early in June, went ahead to reduce our quota to 1.38 million barrels per day from its previous level of 1.742 million barrels per day. Now, OPEC is doing that in order to shore up prices, but our lower levels of production make us an easy target for national quota figures to be reduced. The quota will be renegotiated in November this year, but I remember back 25 years ago where at a production level of 2.2 million barrels per day, the country made significant efforts to extend that quota in order to increase our revenues. The MD of NNPC Limited is on record recently as saying that during COVID, we had the capacity to produce up to 2.1 million barrels per day. Our 2023 budget is based on a benchmark quota of 1.69 million barrels per day, which means that the figures for production for the second quarter are actually at 28% below the budget targets. This gives us a significant impact on the ability to execute capital projects, and therefore I believe that the figures can be shored up if we are to reduce the level of oil theft, and it would give us a greater opportunity to execute capital projects in the year 2023 and beyond if we're able to pass this motion, support this motion raised by distinguished Senator Ned Woko. Thank you very much, sir.
Mr. President, I hope you will accept if I remind you that when we were members of the National Economic Council, during the era of President Goodluck Jonathan, we all condemned in very strong terms what seems to be the incapacity of the Nigerian state to police its waters and protect its assets, particularly oil revenue and oil production. I know, Mr. President, that together we fought such that the then government set up a committee made up of governors to interface with the NNPC authorities, as well as the security chiefs, the army, the navy, etc. On that occasion, as I still believe now, we came to the conclusion that it is impossible for people to cut away hundreds of barrels of oil without being caught. The struggle by officers of the Nigerian Navy to be posted to Eastern Naval Command and be deployed to this area in question, in my view, is an eloquent statement about how lucrative those postings have become. The lobby to become part of the JTF, all of those institutions put in place, security institutions put in place to protect these pipelines, they've all been lost. Mr. President, sir, we are told that billions of naira or dollars are signed in contract to protect and prevent vandalization. What I would suggest is not for us to continue to lament or set up inquiries. My suggestion, Mr. President, is that given the seriousness of this situation, and I will dare say before the new government, each agent gets sucked into the tradition, this is the time to stop it. And what do we do differently? Mr. President, under your leadership, I think the matter is serious enough to invite the Chief of Naval Staff and the Chief of Army Staff and even the Chief of Air Staff, because you can't have big vessels in Nigerian waters for weeks being fed by small vessels, and the oil is scattered away. Like people have said, how many people are in prison? And I want to advise my brother, Senator Izunaso, this idea of showing us pictures as they used to do to us when we started those investigations. They show us drums of people who are involved in illegal bunkering. They show us a couple of drums, etc., etc. I had argued then, and I believe it now, that the combined total of what you can cut away in drums cannot explain 100, 200, 300, 400, 500,000 barrels per day being stolen. It cannot. This is an organized theft. And those involved in this are protected. We need to help this president who, in his campaign, of which we were party to, vowed that everything will be done to defend the Nigerian asset.
Without prejudice to investigations at the committee level, this Senate, sitting in the committee of the whole and in plenary, should invite the security chiefs, the Chief of Defense Staff, who controls the joint operations, the Chief of Naval Staff, the Chief of Army Staff, the Customs DG, and all the related, the NNPC itself, so that they can brief these hallowed chambers on the situation of things while the committee can do the detailed investigation. That will underscore the national seriousness that is attached to this, number one, and our willingness to support this agenda. So that's my prayer, sir.